The dog almost died. Everyone passed by, except one human. Stray dogs are not uncommon in many regions of the world. If they are lucky, they can get by. When they get sick and have nothing to eat, they actually need our help. But many people look the other way. The street dogs of Buenos Aires. In the poorer areas of Buenos Aires, feral dogs breed and then wander all over the city in search of food. Pablo grew up near a poor neighborhood. His family was not really wealthy, but not poor either. He knew the stray dogs since his childhood. There were real packs that roamed the streets in the evening. Whenever they had leftover food or bones, his father would put a bowl outside the door for the dogs. Pablo carried his love of animals over into his adult life. In addition to his work as a journalist, he spent his free time taking care of the stray dogs in his hometown. He couldn't just look away. One evening, Pablo was on his way to a party. There he saw an almost lifeless piece of skin and bones lying on the side of the road. The numerous passers-by on the sidewalk did not give the poor creature a glance. The sight was so cruel, and most of them probably thought this poor dog was already lost. When he turned the car around to look for a place to park, Pablo had long forgotten the party. How could he even drink cocktails and talk about joyful things now, knowing that this guy was here in the gutter, suffering? When Pablo arrived at the side of the road, passers-by looked curious at first, then ignored the scene. The fact that someone helped the dog after all put many of the people to shame. Carefully, Pablo touched the seemingly lifeless body. The dog looked truly gruesome. His fur was completely gone, and bones protruded through skin covered with blood and scabs. His eyes were half closed. Then Pablo patted him lovingly. The eyes opened a tiny crack. Pablo had been right. There was still life here. Once home, the dog immediately got some water. He swallowed. That was a good sign. The next day the vet came. The dog was suffering from parasites, was incredibly malnourished, dehydrated, and emaciated. Yet this guy was probably barely a year old. Pablo named the dog Puck. On the first day, Puck ate some rice and a tiny piece of chicken. The eating cost the poor guy so much energy that he slept again for the rest of the day afterwards. On the second day, Puck already took a second portion. On the 10th day after his rescue, Puck got up for the first time. His legs were shaky and he fell down again after one step. But he got up again and tried again. After 2 months of loving care and the best medical attention, Puck had a real coat again. His eyes lit up when he saw people. He ate and could already run a little. When he was really fit again, Puck found a new home. A nice couple who lived just around the corner from Pablo adopted the dog. Puck is one of the most grateful creatures Pablo has ever known. Every time Puck sees Pablo, he seems to say thank you once again from the bottom of his heart with his big brown eyes. Two things are especially touching about this story. It is unbelievable how much suffering and illness a dog can take and still stay alive. Of course, it is just as touching that people with a heart like Pablo do not let themselves be deceived by first appearances. They know no disgust or shame. They know only compassion and helpfulness. Let me tell you about a dog that brought people to a house. When the dog led the people to the house, they were more than stunned when confronted by the ruthless residents. There is nothing greater and more powerful than the infinite love of a mother. When we are born, we need nothing more than the care, warmth, and nourishment of our mother. But a mother not only takes responsibility for us, she can't help but care for her children. And why should this be any different for animals? Most animals are at least as protective. Animal mothers are very protective and treat their babies very lovingly with hearts full of love. A mother animal never leaves her babies at any time or under any circumstances, no matter what. She reliably stays by her baby's side and raises them as best she can. The relationship between a human and a pet, in this case a dog, is also similar to a mother-child relationship. Pets are completely at our mercy and rely on our love and attention. What the animal rescue workers observed was a great mystery. A female dog kept appearing in the area and regularly prowled around an old house. This happened with such regularity that the residents informed Animal Rescue. Animal Rescue immediately moved in to check on the dog. The neglected and limping dog appeared out of nowhere. It was suddenly just there. They became aware of the dog primarily because the dog had a thick udder and it was obvious that she had recently been pregnant. When the rescuers stepped to the door of the house and opened the door, there was a whole litter of cute little puppies sitting there. It turned out that the owners of the house had thrown the mother dog out of the house right after she gave birth and separated the puppies from their mother. It was a real tragedy, because the owners of the mother and the puppies were not aware that this meant the death sentence for the puppies. They were so young that they desperately needed their mother's closeness, warmth, and milk to survive. Fortunately, Animal Rescue was able to intervene just in time. They forced the owners to release the puppies and were able to reunite the mother and her babies. The owners were charged with animal cruelty and reported to the police. Both the mother and the puppies are now in the care of animal welfare workers, where they are waiting for a new, loving home with people who will take good care of them. The former owners face a ban on keeping animals and were ordered to pay a fine. This story shows once again how important it is to keep a close eye on our neighborhood and to stand up for the most vulnerable among us, because that includes animals as well as the elderly, the sick, and children. There are people out there who simply don't care about other living beings, and this is something that must be prevented. Kudos to the neighbors who responded with moral courage. I have a last touching story for you. The dog was like many other dogs on the streets. He was just thrown away. But one morning, something changed. It happens all the time that people get a pet and then eventually abandon it on the side of the road for various reasons. This is the story about an American pit bull terrier that was used for dogfighting by his owner. But as he got older, the dog, who went by the name The Count, started losing more and more fights. The owner abandoned him like a broken toy, and this despite the fact that the dog had emerged victorious from the brutal fights countless times. Was this the thanks for those efforts and the dog's years of loyalty? The chance to rush to the rescue. When his master drove away in the car, the dog did not even feel the need to run after the vehicle. He set off in search of a new home, not knowing where he was even going. Most people were afraid of his impressive looks and muscular body. Hardly anyone dared to approach him. Near a store, he suddenly heard a 9-year-old girl crying. Her money had been stolen by two 15-year-old teenagers. One of them was a red-haired boy who pushed the girl aside, almost falling down himself. Although passers-by saw it, no one thought to help the girl. But the dog wanted to protect the weak, so he approached the thieves. When they discovered the dog, they quickly ran away. Thoughtfully, the girl looked at him and could not help hugging him tightly. "You saved me," she said, and the dog gently snuggled up to her face. The girl lovingly patted his head and thoughtfully looked at his scars. After all, she couldn't know what dangers the dog had already put himself in. She entered the store, but not to buy chocolate, but sausage for her rescuer. Gratefully, the Count accepted his reward. She waved goodbye to him, and the dog spent the following days alone on the street again, looking for a place to sleep near the store. Building a lifelong friendship. When the girl went to the store a few days later, she discovered her four-legged friend. The dog stood up and wagged his tail obediently, whereupon the little girl offered him a sandwich. The next day the girl visited the store accompanied by her father. She said to him, "Look, Daddy, that is the dear dog that saved me." The father only replied, He looks dangerous. I don't want him to live with us." As if understanding that his fate was at stake, the dog just sat silently. Finally, the girl burst into tears. It wasn't long before the father was persuaded to give the dog a chance and take him in as a new member of the family. The Count really behaved in exemplary manner. He always kept in the background when guests came and loved to walk the girl. One day, during a trip to the lake, the girl, her father, and their dog encountered the former dog owner. He tried to threaten the family and wanted to report them for theft. But the dog managed to drive him away. At that moment, the father also realized that it was a very special animal that wanted nothing more than to protect the little girl and her relatives. How did you like the stories? Would you have walked on by? Or are you someone who just can't look away when animals need help? Let us know and share your stories and opinions in the comments.